Hi, guys. Welcome to the Simple Doesn't Mean Easy podcast. We are here every week working at simplifying things in our lives one day at a time, one stipple step, one simple step at a time. I'm your host, Michelle Visser, and today it's going to be a simple episode. I have been this week thinking about what I wanted to record because there are a lot of things I have planned coming up. But I realized there are three simple tools that I have been using in my kitchen on repeat. And it seems worthwhile to share these with you and let you know these things that make my life genuinely so much easier in the kitchen. And that, especially this time of year, but honestly, year round, I am using these tools. So I think you're going to like the episode. Stick with me to the end because I actually have a bonus fourth item that I want to share with you. So don't miss that because this one's going to surprise you, actually. I'll just leave it at that. Don't miss the surprise at the end. But first, before we start, I want to let you know that I have been using a special serum on my face for, goodness, I bet you about a year now. And I just learned some interesting things about it. And I've actually seen this effect myself, but I thought I was a little crazy. It is a reparative retinol serum. And every drop of this serum, it's actually also made from regenerative tallow. Every drop has fermented cod liver oil that has naturally occurring retinol in it. And retinol is a powerful vitamin that works at the cellular level to nourish and restore our skin and to naturally reduce wrinkles. There's also 5 nourishing herbs in this serum. And this is the part I didn't know until just actually today. I looked up some information and went, wow, this serum has emu oil. And that is a really deep natural moisturizer that reduces inflammation and it soothes irritation and it promotes healing. And I have seen all of those impacts from this serum. But this company doesn't just make serum, they make amazing soaps that I've been using for just as long, amazing regenerative beef tallow bombs and so much more. Go to soulyrested.com/non-toxic. I link to my all-time favorites and share a discount code for you there. All these items are from Hearth and Homestead store. I've been telling you about them for a while, and I'm going to keep on singing their praises because I seriously love everything that I get from Hearth and Homestead store. So go check them out at soulyrested.com/non-toxic. So today, okay, these tools. You can find all of these tools in one place. You can go to soulyrested.com/cover, COVER. The page is called that because there's a lot of information there about cover crops, which I know seems unrelated, but believe it or not, it actually isn't because these 3 tools, when I realized, whoa, I get these all from the same source, I went, okay, this would be a great podcast episode because they're even all in one place. And then I realized I have them all under my cover crop page because this is also where I go to get seeds and cover crops. So it's kind of crazy the amazing products that they have that are all available in one place. And I even have a very special code for you that's good only a few more weeks when this podcast airs. Yes, it'll be exactly 2 weeks. So don't miss out on this awesome code. Go to soulyrested.com/cover. I explain it all there. And everything I mentioned today is linked there. So I think I'm going to start with the thing that relates to the garden as well as my kitchen. I guess I could relate all of them, honestly, now that I think about it. But this one I think is closely linked between gardening and the kitchen. Although you can use this tool if you've never grown any food in your life. You can absolutely use it for vegetables that you get at the store or at the farmer's market. What I'm talking about is a ferment kit that has this amazing spring. I think I've mentioned this on here in the past, but I've never really talked, I don't think, in depth about this. If you're on YouTube, you can see exactly what I mean. If you're not, think of a really intense slinky and you can kind of picture it. So it's a coil and it's made from really high grade stainless steel. When I show this on Instagram, if I show myself fermenting anything, I'm always using this kit and people will notice this spring because it's pretty unusual. And I'll get so many comments about, no, you can't be putting metal in your ferment. What are you doing? And I'm like, well, it's not metal. It's high grade stainless steel. It does not corrode when it's in the presence of something acidic like a ferment. And why I love this is the way it works. If you have any wide mouth mason jar whatsoever, you can use this on top of your fermented food to hold the food under your salted brine, or it's a sweet brine if it's fruit, and it will fit whatever size it needs to fit. If your jar is really jammed packed with food, then the spring will squeeze all the way down. If you only have the jar half full of food, then the spring can be much larger and still hold your food under the brine. So I love that about it. And then the lid has holes in it, but when you have the fermenting, what do I want to call that? Little cover on the holes, air can get in, which is necessary because you want that good bacteria that's floating around in your air to be feeding your fermented food. That's how it works. But you don't want bugs and critters and little pesky flies. So the cover keeps any bugs or pests out of your food, yet it still allows the air in. So this lid also is a high grade stainless steel. If you use just a regular mason jar and just a regular rim on your fermented foods, probably after just once, maybe 2 or 3 times of using that rim on your jar, you're going to have to throw it away because it's going to get rusted very quickly. Those rims are extremely cheap, pretty much disposable metal, and they are not going to withstand any amount of acidity. But these lids are never going to rust. So you can use these for a lifetime and pass them down to your kids. I highly recommend this ferment kit. And at my page, soulyrested.com/cover, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to add all my ferment recipes because there are so many great things you can do with this kit. You can ferment blueberries, you can ferment peaches, and cherry tomatoes are one of my favorite. Peppers are also one of my favorite. Pickles, cauliflower, so many options. And when you're fermenting your food, guys, it is so, so good for your gut health. We live in an age that our gut health has been destroyed. In fact, I was just this week on a guest on the Relatable podcast with Ali Stuckey, and I went to Dallas to sit down and talk with her about the state of our food. And one thing we talked about is our current gut health epidemic. And I believe personally, a lot of it comes back to our flour because our flour, unless you are using organic, you are absolutely getting traces of glyphosate in every flour that you use, every cup of flour. And unfortunately, because it is one of the core staples in our pantry, we all use flour. We are all exposed to glyphosate in our guts continually, and glyphosate kills our good bacteria. And one of the purposes, one of the main important jobs of our good bacteria in our gut is to help us digest gluten. And we wonder why 1 out of 3 people today have gluten sensitivities. Maybe it all comes down to the glyphosate in our flour. I went into a lot of other great details. Catch the Relatable episode if you want to know a lot more about the history of flour in our country and what it has done to our health and what its current state is really like. But I will give you the spoiler alert. The solution is actually not difficult. The solution is fresh flour. And I know I've talked about that here a lot. I know I'll talk about it a lot more because there's so much to say about it. And it is so, so important and so good for our health. If you go to soulyrested.com, There's actually right on the homepage, I have a fresh flour tab, and you can go till your heart's content and look at all the things I have written recently about fresh flour, about grain mills, about wheat berries, about how to source your wheat berries and how to store your wheat berries, and how to use your flour and tips in using it in your baking because it is different than commercial flour. And there are certain things you need to know. So all of that you can find in one place over at Souly Rested, SOULY rested.com. Okay, so that's the first tool that I love, the ferment kits. The second one I'm going to show you is actually very similar. This is a lid. Now, this one, if you notice on YouTube, doesn't have the holes on the top. It's not for fermenting. This is an actual lid for a mason jar. It's a wide mouth lid. And there are two things I love about this. And I actually think I probably own about 5 dozen of them. I think at least 5 times over the past few years, I have realized I needed more and I order another dozen because they are that good and I absolutely love them. In fact, before I discovered these lids, I used to use primarily regular mouth mason jars to store a lot of things in my kitchen. And when I discovered these, because they only make them in wide mouth, I started slowly switching over some of my food, some of my ingredients to wide mouth. I'm never going back. They're so much better. I don't know why I didn't start off with wide mouth because wide mouth are so much more accessible to get out whatever it is you're going for, whether it's sugars or chocolate chips or organic loose leaf tea, whatever it is. It's so much easier when you have the wide mouth jar to hold your food or your ingredient, right? But these lids are a game changer. Like I said about the ferment lid, they are high gauge stainless steel, so they're not going to rust. The first thing I got these for was for my kombucha because kombucha, in a matter of just a few cycles of bottling, if you're using mason jars for your second ferment, which I highly recommend, people say you can't. They tell you, oh, you're not going to have carbonation. It's not true. You absolutely can use mason jars. I think it's cheaper. I think it's easier. I just like it better than having to line up all those little special jars with the flip top. There's a name for them. I'm forgetting it. But I just don't like that. I don't like having a single serving of kombucha. I want to have a half gallon of kombucha in my fridge or on my counter at all times. And I want to be able to pour it really easily and not deal with the silly little flip top that always didn't go back on well for me. So years and years ago, I totally converted everything I was doing over to mason jars with my kombucha. And when I found these lids, it made the world of difference because if you're using, like I said, with ferment, kombucha is a fermented drink. If you're using the cheapo rims on your jar, they're going to get rusty and corroded in no time. And then it even stays on the rim of your jar if you just keep using it, and then you're going to get some of the rust in your drink or your food. You don't want that. So these lids solve all of that, but they're also such a heavy duty quality that they're really easy to get on and off. I struggle with lids even before I got old. I shouldn't call myself old. I'm not really old, just a little bit. But I have strong hands. I don't have weak hands, but getting lids off sometimes is so difficult. These are so much easier. I'm not going to say I never ever have trouble with them, but it's such a smaller percentage of the time because they're such high grade material. And then I love that they have a removable seal. This seal is the most intense seal I have ever found on a lid. So these are amazing. The reason I recently got another dozen of these lids is because we got a freeze dryer this summer. And I have been freeze drying all the things. In fact, I'm sure I'm going to have plenty of episodes coming up about freeze drying because I have learned so much. I didn't realize what I was missing. I really thought dehydrating and freeze drying were pretty much the same. And I had a great dehydrator, so I didn't think I needed a freeze dryer. I'm so glad I decided to take the plunge and pick one and try it because it's a game changer. And I really, now that I have both, I can't imagine not having both machines to preserve my food. I will say that's also because you guys know I hate canning. Hate it. I hate pressure canning. I hate hot water bath canning. I just don't like canning. So it's a game changer to have my dehydrator and my freeze dryer for different reasons, for different foods, for different outcomes. I love them both. But I've been freeze drying so much. I don't even know if I can pick my favorite thing. Cheese, broccoli, green beans, especially garlic green beans for a snack. They're kind of like veggie straw. Um, what do I want to call them? Straws? If you know what I mean. Um, Cucumbers and ranch dressing. They're kind of like a ranch flavored chip. Um, Cherry tomatoes. Maybe they're my favorite because they're perfect for croutons on a salad. Like the perfect light, airy, fluffy texture. Even better than croutons because croutons are sometimes hard to bite through in your salad, right? But these cherry tomatoes are such a nice little crispy bite, but such intense good flavor. I could go on, and I'll just stop because we're going to do episodes in the future, I'm sure, about freeze drying. But I was doing so much food in my freeze dryer and I didn't want to put it in those bags. You know, people are always using those Mylar bags for so many reasons. I didn't want to use them. First of all, they're not reusable. Second of all, you can't see what's in them. Third, they don't store nicely. I can't imagine how I would line them up or store them. I did use some Mylar bags for some of my blueberry powder, and those I put in a large bucket, which we'll get to buckets at the end. So I did do that. But that's the only Mylar bags I use because I want to be able to line up my food to see what I have. And I want to be able to reuse the packaging that they're in. So mason jars for me have been the way to go, all the way from half gallon down to pint and wide mouth for all of them. And these lids are amazing. I do vacuum seal the freeze dried food I'm not going to be eating soon. So if it's, if I've done 10 jars of corn, like cut off the corn on the cob and freeze dry it, then I will seal up 9 of them. And the 10th one that wasn't quite full, I will use these lids for because this seal is amazing. As long as you are putting your lid on snugly, your food is going to stay fresh. So I don't have to seal, unseal, reseal that jar that I'm going to be using for corn for the next, 5 meals or whatever. I can just use these lids. So that's why I got the most recent dozen for all of my freeze dried food that I want to get in and out of, that I'm not putting away for the winter, that I'm using now. Okay. Before I go on to the third tool that I am in love with and have been using continually, this one, I think the third one is my favorite. Let me think. Is it? I mean, it's hard to choose. Nah, I really can't choose, but I really like the third one. But before I get to that one, I want to tell you about our other 2 sponsors today. First of all, the candles I have been using are great. Like the non-toxic candles are, I was going to say so much better than the other cheap junkie candles, but I can't even say that. I should say, please, if you have any candles that are not non-toxic, please consider getting rid of them. It was hard for me at first. I had them stuck away in a closet. Like, well, I don't want to just throw them away. They're good smelling candles. I like them, but they're not, guys. They are loaded with chemicals that are toxic that you are breathing in, and they really should be tossed. So the candles that I've replaced all of my bad candles with, I'm so happy with because they're beeswax and they are not only non-toxic, but they are actually working at cleaning the air in the room that I am burning them in whenever they are lit. And on top of that, I really have to tell you that this company doesn't just make candles. They make a lot of fun things. If you go to soulyrested.com/non-toxic, I link to my favorite things there. And one of them is deodorant. I'm going to show you if you're watching on YouTube. It's so hard to find a non-toxic deodorant. I have tried so many, but this one goes on smooth and it does a fantastic job. Highly recommend this deodorant. If you're getting some candles, toss in a deodorant, try it out, and then get back to me and let me know if you agree. Let me know what you think. So go to soulyrested.com/non-toxic. And finally, my third sponsor of the day is actually something I was just talking about. Blue Alpine freeze dryers. I can't tell you how happy I am with my choice. I just found out today. I was shocked. I just found out a follower reached out to me and told me that Harvest Right freeze dryers have a hugely bad reputation for their customer service. I didn't know this. I didn't even research Harvest Right. I'm like a rebel at heart. And because everybody else had a Harvest Right, I didn't even consider it. I mean, maybe that's silly of me, but I figured I want to see what else is out there. And I also personally love small business. And Harvest Right to me, I really don't know anything about them, but my assumption is they are not a small business because every influencer in the world who has a freeze dryer is trying to sell you Harvest Right. My assumption is they're a really big company. So the first thing I loved when I came across Blue Alpine was the fact that it's a small company. But then I started reading about their customer service and I was really impressed. Like 5 stars everywhere I looked. People were talking about how great this company was. It's a small family run company. I believe it's two brothers that started out in Iowa, I believe. Could be Idaho. Those two eyes confuse me. I'm not sure which one it is, but I can't believe it. I've had to call them twice. One of them was just a week ago, I believe. And I couldn't believe that they texted me and got back to me right away. And even when they told me to do something and I just didn't do it right away, I'm like, oh, I'll do that tomorrow. I hadn't gotten back to them about this test they wanted me to run. They texted me again. They're like, hey, just checking in. Were you able to do that? Like, what is that? What kind of customer service is that? Like, they're not even waiting on me to get back to them. They're checking in on me because they wanted to help me and they knew it's harvest season. They knew I probably had a lot of things I was trying to process and they wanted to get this taken care of. It turns out I just had to wipe off one of the sensors in the machine. It had gotten some water on it, I guess. And it very well could have been my fault because well, it's a long story. I don't have to tell you, but it might have been my fault. And all I had to do was wipe it off. And they showed me where it was. They told me what panel to take off and how to wipe it off. Actually, I need to give Bill the credit. I really shouldn't make you think that I took apart this machine and did this because I didn't. I could have. It was that easy, but I had Bill do it. Anyway, I'm blown away with their customer service. And I was shocked when a follower reached out to me today. I was just sharing on Instagram about my machine and what I was freeze drying. And she reached out and said, I'm so upset that years ago I got a harvest right and I would never do it again if I could go back. She actually mailed her unit in at her expense to get them to repair it. They shipped it back to her at her expense and it was still broken. And they wouldn't help her because at that point it was past the time of her warranty. And they said there was nothing they could do. So she literally has a broken giant freeze dryer sitting in her garage that she doesn't really know what to do with. She doesn't know if she should just throw it away, but it was such a huge investment. She doesn't want to just throw it away. So, anyway, sorry, that was a long thing to tell you. If you're looking for a freeze dryer, go check out bluealpine.com and use code soulyrested, SOULY rested. Okay, back to the tools I love. I'm looking around. Here it is, literally right in front of me. This is a game changer. I will probably never make any bulk amount of tea without this. Let me show you. This is a tea filter. I have two of them, and this is my original one. If you're watching on YouTube, you can tell it's slightly stained a little bit from the tea. Maybe not, slightly. This is amazing. It's 2 layers of a really fine gauge. It's really high quality stainless steel. And these 2 layers mean that no tea, even rooibos, which is the finest loose leaf tea that I use to make any either kombucha or teas, will not get through this amazing fine gauge steeper. But it's the length, it's about almost as tall as a quart jar. But I use it in quart jars and in half-gallon jars like I have here today. If you put the filter in the jar, it sits perfectly, and you can then put however much loose leaf tea you need for this amount of water, for whatever size jar you're using. And then remember I showed you these lids a minute ago. The reason that they make it with the removable seal is because when you are using this tea strainer, you want your lid without a seal so that it will fit on top of the lip of the strainer that's sitting on your jar. And then when you're done with your tea steeping, you can so easily remove the tea and then put sorry, if you're not on YouTube, you hear all these clinging and clanging sounds. But if you're on YouTube, this way you can see what I'm talking about. You put the seal in the lid And now you have a leak-proof jar, or you can use it like a glass that you can take anywhere you want, and your tea or drink in there isn't going to spill, and you have this great lid. So I use this daily to make a double strength chicory tea blend that I use as a medicinal espresso alternative. I make lattes almost every day. I try to not have too much caffeine or coffee. And sometimes I make 2 or 3 lattes. I'll just admit it. I'll just admit it, especially in the fall because pumpkin lattes, ooh, they really get me. So do Dr. Pepper lattes. They're so good, guys. I have a Dr. Pepper simple syrup recipe that you can use to make Dr. Pepper homemade soda, but it's also really good in a latte. I think that might be my favorite way to drink a latte, honestly. But I digress. I use this to make the chicory tea, but I use it for any kind of tea I'm making. If I want a jar full of tea, I will grab this strainer because it's so easy. You don't have to steep or strain out your loose leaf tea before you can drink your drink out of your jar. You just pull out the steeper and you're all set and ready to go. I also use it for kombucha. I really like it for second ferment kombucha. If I fill up a half-gallon jar with my second ferment, and then I add whatever I want to flavor it to my steeper, whether it's fruit or a bunch of herbs or a bunch of loose leaf tea, whatever it is I'm flavoring my kombucha with goes in this steeper. And then after it is sat for a day or two and it tastes just right, it's so easy to remove the flavoring and my kombucha is ready to drink. So, like I said, this might be my favorite of today's tools because it might be the most used. It's possible it gets used a lot. But I promised you a bonus tool because I thought about making it 4 simple tools I use in my kitchen. But I thought, that's really not a fair way to label it because this fourth item is not something that's actually in my kitchen. It is in my pantry, my walk in pantry. I actually have 2 areas in my house I call a pantry, which I know is weird. I don't know why we never get confused. Um, kind of have 3, honestly, but I don't call the root cellar a pantry. But we have a full length, not very deep cabinet in our kitchen that holds a lot of different things like teas and adaptogens and electrolytes and protein powders. And almost all of them are in jars. But they're all jars with the stainless steel lid, the second tool that I showed you. But in my walk-in pantry, which is in the hall on the way to the barn, Bill recently updated it for me this spring, and it makes me so happy to have this walk-in pantry. So, so happy because I used to have to go all the way to the back hall that's right before our barn in a really cold area in the winter because it's not heated back there. And that's where I randomly stored all the things that now are in my walk-in pantry. But on the bottom shelf, so basically on the floor, I have some buckets of my most used bulk items. So on those buckets, I can't stand those flimsy, cheesy lids that come with the bucket when you're buying a food grade bucket. And they're so hard to get off sometimes. And they're also hard to know you have it on well. Plus, they don't have a seal. So whenever I store any of my bulk ingredients in 5-gallon buckets, I do 2 things. I make sure it's a food grade bucket and I get a special lid for the bucket. Let me show you what I mean. These are called Smart Seal lids because underneath they have an actual seal. So now my bucket is sealed closed, it's airtight. But they also have a twist on and off lid. So all I have to do to get to my food is twist that lid off. This rim is attached to the bucket. I will say there's a caveat with these. They are not always easy to get on because every 5-gallon bucket can be slightly different, especially if it's one that you've used before. If it's not brand new, but it's been used for a little while, it can be a little out of shape. So it's not a perfect round shape to put this rim on. So Bill will sometimes struggle getting these on for me, but once it's on, it is on for good. You only have to put it on once. And it has the grooves in here that you can twist on and off your lid. But here's the surprise. Here's the thing that people don't know. If you can see this, or maybe just from me describing it, you might think it's a gamma lid. A lot of people say, "Oh, I love gamma lids," or "Oh, I have a gamma lid," or "Oh, I'm going to get some gamma lids" whenever I show them on Instagram. And I try to always explain to people, actually, they're not gamma lids. Here's the thing. Gamma lids, about, I'm not positive, 7 or 8 years ago, maybe, sold out and they were purchased by another company. At that point, the company did some things to save money, to save on the bottom line. And they changed something. I don't know what. I know this because a company that I have been working with for a decade that I really trust and really respect, the owner of that company told me about 7 or 8 years ago that he stopped working with gamma lids because they were all being returned. He had customers complaining and wanting their money back because after using it for just a short time, they were putting pressure on the center of the lid where there's an X that comes together where you put your pressure to twist the lid open and closed, and it was getting cracked right there in the middle. So there's something that they changed about the design, or most likely about the plastic material that's used to make these lids. And it's just not strong enough in the middle to hold up now. So that company switched over to these lids instead. Like I said, they're called Smart Seal, and he's never had a problem with them. They are made really well, and I have never had a problem. I've been using them probably that long, 7 years, 6 years, and I've never had a problem. Love them. They work really well. And I highly recommend them if you want to store anything in bulk. The first things I started storing in bulk were salt and sugar. They're two things that I can't grow myself. We do make our own maple syrup, and I can turn that into maple sugar, but I cannot grow coconut sugar or organic cane sugar. So, those are two things that I can never do on my own, that are never going to go bad, that store really well. So, those were the first things I started with when I was buying in bulk. And I can't imagine if I don't have these lids on the buckets, I would go crazy because I'm actually going to those two buckets pretty frequently to fill up my half-gallon jars that are in my kitchen that I go to on a daily basis when I need those ingredients. So that's it. That's the 4 tools that I have noticed lately I have been using so much. It's that season, harvest season is such a busy time of year. And it's a really busy time for me with all of these tools. So I hope there was something there that I gave you maybe an idea of how to make things a little more streamlined or a little easier in your kitchen or in your pantry. And I hope there's a tool there that you will find as valuable as I do, because like I said, they're game changers. And we all need a few game changers in our life, right? We all need a few game changers to help us make real food a little bit more convenient and a little bit easier. So these tools will do that. Go to soulyrested.com/cover, COVER, and all of these you will find there. So that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening, guys. I can't tell you how much it means to me that you are here. I couldn't do this without you. I wouldn't do this without you. Yet, because you guys are here and the things you reach out to me and tell me that encouraged you, it inspires me and it literally makes my day. And I love doing what I do. I love doing this podcast. And I love that you are here listening and making it possible. So thanks for listening, friends. And remember, it is easy to forget how blessed we are to live this life. So enjoy the simple, everyday efforts. It's not easy, but it's definitely a good life.